Hi everybody, welcome to Classic Car Chat here on the Monroe Motorsports channel. Beside me we have the 1966 Ford Falcon that I've been working on for the last year or so, and bringing this car back from the dead and putting it back on the road, and eventually taking the six-cylinder out and putting a V8 in it. I wanted to talk today about how this project came to be and the philosophy behind it, and review a little bit about what's going on in the collector car hobby right now, and a little bit of a pitfall that I'm experiencing in my personal journey with this car. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to move the camera so that I don't have to yell quite as much so you can hear me, and we'll continue from there. Okay, so I used to be involved in the collector car hobby many years ago, and have done a restoration and worked on a number of older vehicles. But as the cars got newer and more complex, I kind of lost interest in the hobby. And also, having had the first restored car and having the concern of taking care of that car after it was done, with the constant worry of it getting chipped or scratched or dented or even dirty, it took a lot of the joy out of owning and driving the car for me, and I kind of lost interest in that whole thing. I got involved in racing after that, and that was kind of refreshing because I could just drill holes anywhere I needed to in a car, and it didn't matter because we weren't ever going to put it back on the road again. So that was kind of cool, but racing's very expensive, and as the cars got newer again, they got more complex. I didn't enjoy working on them, and I found that I wasn't spending any time in the garage anymore. I wound up buying an old Royal Enfield motorcycle and fixing that up. I don't have a video series on that one. That was before I got on YouTube. But that project refreshed my interest in working on things in the garage again, because it was so simple, so easy, and so inexpensive that I really had a grand time working on that bike. And it's running and riding, and I still have it today. So I wanted to find a suitable vehicle project, and had always wanted one of these cars, which will be the subject of another video. Why? But after a search, I found this particular car, and it had a litany of problems, but the project that I had foreseen for this car was simply to take an existing car that was reasonably solid, was all one color, and didn't need extensive rust repair, and just turn it into the car that I wanted to take on cruises and maybe on power tour, and run it down the drag strip maybe once or twice, and do an autocross with it once or twice, that kind of thing. I wanted to have a car I could have fun with. And so the outside appearance wasn't going to be of paramount importance, and I was able to embrace that because of the success of shows like Roadkill and Vice Grip Garage on YouTube and some of those people. So that trend towards these slightly tatty or sometimes really ugly cars, I'll allow you to look up the Holy Goat series. The fun that those guys were having with those cars without worrying about paint and cosmetics and all that was kind of what I was looking for. I could enjoy doing the mechanical stuff, which I enjoy, and not fussing over all the cosmetics that I don't enjoy. So I got this car started down this project road with this thing, and everything's been going great. I basically purchased this car. I bought a shell. It was a running driving shell, barely, but I wanted a solid body to start with, again, that I didn't have to do a whole lot to. I do a couple of floor patches, nothing big there, and right now I'm dealing with some issues with the quarter panels and the wheel houses in the back. Again, not big, but it's an issue, and I'll show you those things in a moment. So, what's the problem? Well, as much as I have embraced that whole Roadkill, Vice Grip, Junkyard Digs, Dylan McCool mentality of a roadsteration, and I'm still on board with that, it is sometimes a struggle for a guy like myself who likes to make things right. And as David Freiberger, I think, has said, something along the lines of, don't make it right, just make it run or get it on the road or something like that. And that's kind of the main goal with this car up to this point. So I'm going to take you now and I'm going to show you some of the problems that I'm working on with this car as far as rust, and then tell you why that's an issue. All right, so our subject car is a 1966 Ford Falcon, and these cars, there is very little made as far as replacement sheet metal. And one of the things that you can't get, or can't get anything that's really good, is quarter panels or patch panels thereof. And we've got some issues with this car. Down here, you can see there's some holes and some bubbling and things like that. And actually, for one of these cars that's lived in the Northeast as long as this one has, this is in really good shape. Now we've also got some issues going on in here, as I've cut all the rod out of it already. And I'll show you the other side as well. And this is the passenger side, and we've got the same thing going on with the wheelhouse inside. I'm got a patch in there right now. I'm working on getting to fit. But you can see the daylight coming through here from the trunk on the quarters in the back, and all that bubbling there, it's from past bodywork that was not done properly. And as we look underneath here, we can see that there's even, more missing metal that's got to be dealt with. Now the problem with this is a lot of guys that live in, better parts of the country, maybe where there's not so much rain or salt or anything like that, can get away with just driving it like that. And if a little water gets in the trunk, that's not that big of a deal. But here in the Northeast and places where, salt's an issue, not that I would drive this in the wintertime, but just it's out there, we got to seal this stuff up. So, what's the big problem? Well, here's the problem. If you're the kind of guy like myself that likes to do things the right way, simply leaving that alone or slapping some filler on it and calling it good is not going to work for you. And it's going to be, it's going to nag at you like it does me. So, while I can embrace the leave it alone, and accept it for what it is kind of thing cosmetically, there's also my sense of preservation. I don't want this car to get any worse than it is. I may only own this thing for a few years. I could own it for another 25 years. Hard to say. My goal in that time with this car is to not have it get worse or much worse than it is now. I want to be able to preserve it as a fairly solid car. But am I just saving it for the next guy? I don't care about that. I look at it as preserving a piece of history. And so I have to fix that in such a way that it slows down the deterioration as much as possible, but without going into cutting all that out, welding in new pieces, and then trying to match the paint, which isn't going to happen. So it's just a cautionary tale for some of you out there that may be ready to embrace this world of a roadsteration, so to speak. It's not as easy mentally sometimes as you might think to be able to accept that, leaving it rough looking. There's a whole thing out there for people with ratty muscle cars, and I get it and I embrace it. But I also want to be able to at least preserve this car so that future generations can enjoy it after I'm done with it. So my challenge now is to try to seal all of that up in such a way that it doesn't damage the exterior finish and appearance, and still maintain the car in its current state. It's a challenge. It's not as easy as it first sounds. So I'm making some metal patches and putting those in where I can, and as far as the exterior panels where I would have to cut and weld and do all that kind of stuff and disturb that original paint, I'm just not going to do it. I've decided I'm going to coat the insides of those trunk wells with a fiberglass product. The fiberglass will not absorb and hold the moisture like body filler will, so I think that'll be okay. And then I just have to creatively try to cover that up and just maybe dab paint in some of the holes and try to hide those for the most part. The blistering and bubbling body filler that's pushing out through the paint, not a whole lot I can do about that. And I may only be buying, 5 years till the thing really starts to blow through. I don't know. But that's a problem that you have to realize that you're going to have with stuff like this. Unless you've gotten a really solid Arizona dream car body that you can just leave alone and not touch your patina anywhere, you're going to run into stuff like this. So I just wanted to bring that up as a consideration for anybody thinking about doing a car like this, that it's not all sunshine and lollipops, because there's things that are going to bug you, and that's going to bother me for a long time, the fact that I'm not fixing that the right way. I know how to do it, but I don't want to do it because that wasn't the purpose of this project, and also I don't want to do it because I don't enjoy it, and that's going to suck the fun out of it for me. I'm already struggling to get through the wheelhouse patches, which I don't enjoy doing, but that's a necessity that has to be done. So, just a consideration. I wanted to bring it up and put that in your heads. If you're looking to doing a project like this, or you have one already, you just have to kind of embrace the suck sometimes and manage the deterioration as best you can. Do your best to preserve it so it doesn't get worse, because you don't want to have to come back in 10 years and have twice the amount of work to do. But also you don't want to have to ruin what you got here, which overall this car is in pretty nice shape. So that's it. I hope you got something out of that. I enjoy you guys watching and commenting as always. If you haven't seen the Falcon series, go ahead and check that out on the Mongrel Motorsports channel, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.